News where a partial verdict was just reached in Harvey Weinstein's rape retrial. Arthur Cheen is live in Lower Manhattan with more details on this. Arthur.
Bianca, what we can tell you is Harvey Weinstein will be found guilty on one of the three charges that he faces in the retrial of his sex crimes accusation. He'll be found guilty on count one. Now, the reason why we know this, and this is unusual because the jury isn't done yet, is because a juror today issued a note to the judge saying he needed to talk to the judge about a problem that was going on in the jury room. That set off a massive argument in court where even Harvey Weinstein himself spoke to the judge and addressed the court, seemingly to try to intimidate the judge into granting a mistrial, which would benefit him. Well, the judge said, look, you're saying there's a big problem in that jury room right now, so I'm going to ask the jurors if there's an agreement on any of the three charges that Weinstein faces. He says if there's an agreement on one of the other charges, it means they are working together and they are doing what they're supposed to be doing, which is going through a very difficult jury deliberation process. Well, he called the jurors back in and said, I know you're having difficulty with the rape charge, which is count two. Is there an agreement on one of the other charges? All the jurors immediately nodded, and then he said, is it unanimous? And the jurors, a couple of them blurted out, said, yes, it's unanimous. So he sent them back out, said to Arthur Aidala, who is Weinstein's defense attorney, and to Weinstein, the jury is doing its job. I'm going to give them the rest of the day off because it's obviously difficult, but I'm going to have them come in and poll them. So this is how it polls on the three counts. On count one, Harvey Weinstein, the jury says, is guilty. On count two, they say they have not reached a verdict yet. And on count three, the forced oral sex, they have reached a verdict of not guilty. Each of the individual jurors was then polled by the court. All of them confirmed that that's where they're at. So just now, the judge ordered everybody to get some air, cool off today, and to be back in court by 10 a.m. tomorrow morning to return to their deliberations. But again, Harvey Weinstein will be found guilty in at least one count in connection with the retrial case here at the criminal courthouse. Bianca?
All right, Arthur, appreciate it. Thanks so much. And joining us now with more insight in today's verdict is Rich Schoenstein, an attorney, managing editor of the Hofstra Law Review. Rich, thanks so much for joining us.
Good to be here.
All right, let's get right to it. Weinstein is found guilty on one count, then you have the no verdict on another, and then acquitted on the third. So what does that split decision really say about the jury's view of this evidence?
So this case is three different counts for three different women, three different alleged victims. And it was entirely possible that the jury might conclude one thing about one of the alleged victims, something different about the second, and something different about the third. It's not a case where they've decided guilty to a lower charge or a lesser offense. They've simply decided guilty on one of the three stories, not guilty on a second story, and the third one still being considered.
Interesting. Now, moving forward, could prosecutors retry that undecided decision, and would that be a risky or a smart move?
Well, we're not to that yet. First of all, the judge would have to declare a hung jury and a mistrial, and that's not what the judge is doing. The judge is having the jury come back tomorrow for further deliberations on that second count. So they have a guilty verdict on the first count, a not guilty verdict on the third count, which can't be retried once you get a verdict of not guilty, but no verdict yet. If that ends in a hung jury, then in theory it could be retried by the prosecutors.
Sure. Rich, what do you make of the behind-the-scenes courtroom drama that we have seen unfold before this partial verdict came down?
I think it's troubling. I think what we've heard from this jury in terms of acrimony, in terms of divisiveness, and people trying to exert their influence in the jury room, I think it's fodder for appeal, to be quite candid about it. I think whatever verdict comes against Harvey Weinstein in this case, there's going to be a live appeal based just on what has happened in these deliberations. It's surprising to me that it's taken so long. And I've heard a lot of stuff that I don't really like in terms of how the jury deliberations have gone.
Sure. How does today's outcome, I guess, affect Harvey Weinstein's overall legal future moving forward?
Well, it's a bad outcome for him. Any guilty verdict in the state of New York subjects him to a sentence and imprisonment here. I know he has that California conviction already, and he's serving time on that, although he has an appeal pending in California. if he gets another guilty verdict in New York, the chance of him spending the rest of his life in prison, unfortunately, increases substantially.
Interesting. I guess in terms of leaving it here, talking about the Me Too movement as he was a fixture of, what does this partial verdict do to solidify the broader message of accountability moving forward in this Me Too movement?
Well, I think that it's a continuation of accountability. It would have been perhaps perceived as a setback if he was acquitted 5 years after having been convicted at what we all think was the start of the Me Too movement. So it won't be a setback if he's convicted of at least some of these crimes. But I remind everybody, Sean Combs is on trial down the street also for crimes, at bottom, crimes against women. So the idea, this accountability, this is still alive and well in this country. There has not been a death to the Me Too movement yet.
Sure, the spotlight on both of those high-profile cases. Rich, we certainly appreciate you joining us and breaking this down for us. Thank you again.
Great to be here.
We're going to have more continuing coverage on today's verdict on the Fox local app and on the Fox 5 YouTube channel, along with updates on the 5 and 6 o'clock news. We're now going to return you to regularly scheduled programming.
This has been a Fox 5 special report.
When I see you text go, I'm going to count to 5 and go. Unless there's something else. Here's another way to do this. Hi, I'm Arthur Chan from Fox 5. We're down at the criminal courthouse in Lower Manhattan, and we have a major development in the Harvey Weinstein case. What we know right now is that he will be found guilty in at least one of the 3 counts that he faces in his retrial here. That first count, jury just said it's unanimous. They will find him guilty on that count. Now, the reason why this all comes into play today is because the friction between the jurors, which at the beginning of today seemed to have calmed, has reignited. There was a note that was sent by one of the jurors to the judge saying that they had a problem in the jury deliberation room. This set off massive arguments in the courtroom where Harvey Weinstein himself addressed the judge and addressed the courtroom in a tone that seems somewhat intimidating, saying that this is his moment of courage to prove that he's courageous, saying that to the judge. Now, Harvey Weinstein has a very, very expensive legal team. It includes top-notch, well-known attorney that you've seen on our air, Arthur Aidala, and they went after the judge, demanding that the judge declare a mistrial, saying that a, quote, crime has been committed in the jury deliberation room. Well, the judge said that these jury deliberations are not meant to be easy, and while it seems out of the ordinary, it certainly isn't a rarity, is what the judge said. So what he said to Aidala and Weinstein is, I will find out if the jurors agree on any of the 3 counts in this case, because if it does, it means they are working together, that they're having difficulty, which at that point we knew was count 2, which is the rape charge, that they were having difficulty with the rape charge itself. So he called the jurors out, said, okay, we know you're having a problem with one of these charges. On the others, is there agreement? And all of the jurors nodded pretty much furiously. And he said, okay, is it a guilty verdict? They nodded, okay. And then he sort of paused and said, is it unanimous? And some of the jurors even blurted out loud, yes, right? So then the jurors were let out. They discussed it some more in the court, brought the jurors in, and there was an unofficial, well, not official, it is an official polling of the jurors. And on count 1, the jurors said unanimously they will find Harvey Weinstein guilty. On count 2 is a rape charge involving Ms. Mann that they are not ready to present a verdict yet, meaning they are still in deliberations over. But on count 3, the forced oral sex, they also said they will reach a verdict, but it will be not guilty. Let me bring in Jonah here, a very capable guy in the courtroom who's been helping us keep track of everything. What is your read on what's been happening so far?
Oh, I mean, it's been the prosecution at one point described what's been going on as a circus. I mean, Idala has been putting on a really incredible performance. It's been a lot of shouting, a lot of theatrics. I believe that over the course of this whole thing, we've had over a dozen calls for mistrial by Idala. A lot of folksy aphorisms and really colorful language going on so far.
Do you agree with me? All of that tone, all that anger got squashed as soon as the jury came in and said, we are working together. One of the counts we found you not guilty of. One of the counts you will be guilty of, and that it's unanimous. Is it right to say that
Absolutely.
immediately Idala and Weinstein had to...
Right, you saw Idala with his hand on his forehead, one of his counsel doing the same. Yeah, the energy really left the room as soon as those verdicts got read.
Okay, and you just came down after me. Did anything change? The judge had said, I want to give you guys the rest of the day, get some air. He knows it's been tense, and reminded them this is not an easy process, but they need to be back at it tomorrow?
The only change, or the only note really, is that the attorneys have been directed not to speak with the press until deliberations are completed. We're going to reconvene at 3:30 today, and we can...
Meaning the lawyers?
The lawyers, no. The jury have been dismissed for the day, yes.
Okay.
So we'll see what... possibly to speculate a little bit, we might be seeing another attempt at a mistrial by Idala.
Well, I mean, if they've requested so many times, they probably will do it again.
Yeah.
And fair to say, let's talk about count 2, which is the rape. It seems like the jury's having problems with the ongoing consensual relationship that alleged victim was allegedly maintained with Weinstein. Of course, you've seen more of this trial. Prosecutors are saying he's so powerful that any of these victims needed to stay in good graces with him, right? But that seems to be something that the jury is having difficulty with?
Yes. So the other day they requested the transcripts to be reread from the psychologist that they brought in to specifically talk about how someone who had been sexually assaulted by another person might return to them later to have consensual sex or even maintain a relationship with them interpersonally. And that seems to be something that the jury's likely discussing in the room. Every note that we've got today has been related to the Mann charge, so I think it was not surprising to see that this is the one that the jury is having difficulty deciding on. And we're just gonna see. We're gonna see if they're able to come to a conclusion on that.
Okay. And one last thing. It seems like from that note, at least one juror is saying that their mind is made up, and because they don't seem to be willing to discuss it any further, that's the point of frustration for some of the other jurors. So we don't know if it's just that one juror who is holding his ground. They said the gender, but it would be at least one, and it would be that juror who has made up their mind on the rape charge on count 2, and the other jurors seem to be wanting to be able to discuss it, right?
Yes, it's the juror 1, the foreperson, has said that his mind will not be changed on this charge, and who knows how...
That either means he thinks guilty on the rape charge or not guilty, and a lot of other jurors feel the opposite.
Yes, at least one other juror disagrees. And at least one other jury disagrees to the point where, what did he say earlier? That he was, the juror had told him, you don't know me, I'll see you outside.
And which the judge characterized as playground antics. All right, Jonah,
yes.
Thanks so much. That's the latest from here at the criminal courthouse. Again, the jury has been polled by the judge. One of the individuals... one of the charges Harvey Weinstein will be found guilty of. That's count 1 of the indictment. Count 2, the jury said they're undecided on. Count 3, they said they are also unanimous on, but that they will render a not guilty verdict. The jury, given the rest of today off, they're going to be back here tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. The lawyers will continue arguing today. Harvey Weinstein and his very, very expensive defense team will likely again continue arguing for mistrial, but we'll see how that goes. That's the latest from down here in Lower Manhattan. And we send it back in-house.